And this is just an example to you. What happens if you can be extremely focused in what you're doing? And that's sort of what we're talking about here when we're talking about market clarity. It's being focused. So when you're focused, then there are other opportunities that open to you. And these are some of the opportunities that come to me since I got focused on where I want to be in my business and what I talk to with my audience and my clients. Yvonne.
Alrighty, so I'm not sure how many people know me. So my name's Yvonne Hiltz, and I'm following Trish in this whole 12 weeks to help you craft your slideshow, get your language, get your message really clear based on what you've done with Trish, and then making sure that your slide deck and your message is all synchronized, providing a great performance for yourself but also for your audience, and then working there what's your key message for them to get, and then if you've got some product to sell, they can connect it with that. So my background is sales. I'm a sales strategist. I work with large corporates right through to speakers and business owners and entrepreneurs. I've been speaking for decades, well not decades, but a long time, on and off in various different shapes and forms. And I've trained over 13,000 people. In fact, I think it's more than that now because I've sold some big contracts into some of the organizations that you can see on the screen. But my specialty really is how do we light up the stage, or how do you light up the stage from a presentation point of view? And I just wanted to put in here a good framework to start off your 12-week journey, because like all journeys, there's going to be some ups and downs and ins and outs, but I find that by having a good foundation of a mindset in place, it's going to actually help you as you go along. And I talk about, well, where are you now? And if we look at the decisions you make and the actions you take, they're going to equal the results that you get. And there's two types of results you can get, either success or failure. Now, both of them have wonderful lessons and learnings you can get from, but I wanted to put this framework in because I find it very powerful with all the clients that I coach, that when we are on the sessions, when I'm with you, we can talk about are you playing below the line or above the line with your response and how you're handling it all. So I see there's two types of people. Those who play below the line, they're full of blame, they're blaming somebody else for why this stuff's not working. They're full of excuses, could be them, the teachers, the government, you know, the client, the audience, whatever it is, but they're full of excuses as to why they're not getting the results they want. And I find the other component to it is they deny that they've had any ownership or responsibility part of it. It's like it's everybody else's problem and it's not theirs. So it's very difficult for that person to have learnings because what they're actually doing is not taking any ownership. And so for people who play above the line, they take ownership. And ownership is not about just taking it for the good stuff that happens in our lives. It's taking ownership of the stuff that doesn't feel great or didn't go as planned. And, you know, we're all going to have stuff going along this journey that you think this might work for you and it didn't. You had to rework it. And it's about taking ownership and being accountable. And I find that the biggest person to be accountable to is yourself. Certainly all of us involved in your 12-week journey will be there to hold you to account, but you've got to do the work. This is your presentation, your moment to shine on stage, your moment to capture all the audience. So it's about you being response able. And it's choosing how you respond in the moment. And again, it's choosing how you respond in the moment when things aren't going the way you'd hoped they'd go. And also choosing how you respond when things do go the way that you'd like to go. So if we look at the language for someone who's playing below the line, the language they'll use is should. I should have done this, I should have done that, and they end up shooting all over themselves. And the other word that they'll often use is the word try. Oh, I'll try and do this, I'll try and do that. And in actual fact, unless you're playing rugby, which I won't get into a sporting analogy because that's not my zone of genius, you're either doing something or you're not. There is no try. So if you try to sit down from standing, you're actually not trying to sit down, you're in the process of sitting down. So I'd like you to look at your language of where do you catch yourself using blame, excuse, and denial, using language like, oh, I should do this and I should do that, and shooting all over yourself, and catch yourself on your language of like, I'll try. Well, either do or don't, and own it. Versus someone who's playing above the line, the language is different. They'll use language such as I must, and they'll have a commitment to it that is, you can feel the certainty and conviction when they commit. And the other word they'll use is I will. And you can see how this links in beautifully with ownership, accountable, and being response able. The language is very different, and there's an empowerment piece to it. And the difference between someone who plays below the line, they're stuck in victim mode. Victim mode that, you know, it's everyone else's fault, it's not mine, or all these other circumstances made it really difficult for me. And, you know, it's very hard to move someone through from that when they're stuck in victim mode. Versus someone who's playing above the line, they're sitting in a leadership role. And for some people, they go, well, I'm not, you know, maybe I don't consider myself a leader. But you're a leader in your own life. You know, you're a leader in the decisions you make, the actions you take, and therefore the results that you get. So I wanted just to sit this as a framework before I pass back over to Trish, because it's, we're all going to have moments where we drop below the line. I remember when I got taught this about 15 years ago by a very senior coach and mentor who, coaches billionaires. He said it's not about never going below the line. It's a case of, well, what do I do when I find myself below the line in victim mode or full of excuses or using disempowering language that doesn't have me feel fabulous? Well, the key is recognize it. Ask yourself, okay, how have I created this? What can I do differently? And if you are having a moment, own it. Don't blame somebody else. Just own it, and you'll find that you'll shift through it faster. Because the path to success and failure is not a clean-cut path. To be a failure, it takes a lot of effort. You've got to try some stuff, fail, blame, excuse, deny. Like, it takes a lot of effort to fail, just as much as it takes a lot of effort to succeed. There's no overnight success. And so, if you've got the choice of what are you going to spend your time, effort, and money doing, you can either spend it on victim mentality and failure mode, which will certainly get you some results, you might just not like them, or step up and play in success mode. And that doesn't mean you're going to know all the answers and, for everything all the time. It's not about that. It's about your attitude of giving it a go. And even when you don't know what you're doing, ask for help, but come from an empowered place rather than a blame place of making it somebody else's problem. So I just want to set that as a beautiful framework. Very excited to be meeting you all over these next 12 weeks and for meeting you all in person. It's an exciting journey being a speaker. There's so many wonderful opportunities that come from this, and it's a real privilege to be part of your journey and to be really part of the team helping you all achieve the results that you want. So I'm going to hand back over to Trish. Hope that's been very useful. It's a fabulous piece. You'll hear me using that language when we're working together of above the line, below the line, and so my goal will be to help you flip to above the line if I find you below the line. And I'm going to tag team back to Trish. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne, and thanks for setting up a really great foundation for us to work on for the next few weeks, because it is about the language and it is about how we see ourselves and our perception. It's all about the little voices that we have in our head, and that can make or break what we want to do as a speaker and what we want to do when we connect with our audiences. So I'm going to go into, moving on from there, into complacency and comfort. And this is almost leading on from below the line, above the line. I've been speaking and training for over 20 years, and I know what it's like to, when you get to a goal, this is the hidden danger of becoming an expert and a speaker. It's very easy when you've got your expertise, when you've worked your knowledge out and you've got to where you want to be, and then you suddenly reach that goal, and when you start speaking, it's very easy to fall into this trap of complacency. It's sort of like, fine, I'm starting to speak, I've got so much to share, it will give me so many opportunities, I can relax because people will start lining up for me to speak. And this is what will happen. Quite often you'll get a lot of speaking engagements coming in and you feel like, okay, it's all working, and you sit back and take this deep breath. What happens then is that sometimes that first wave of excitement starts to fall away. And you think, oh, they don't want me to speak on this anymore, but I've got so much other expertise. So I'll start putting all that information out to see whether they want me for that. And then you start to get where the waters become muddy. And then no one can see you shine because you are spreading your light in far too many directions. So this hidden danger, this one of complacency, and the next one I'll talk about with comfort, is something that we have to think about all the time. It's why no matter where we are on our speaking journey, whether we're just starting out to share our expertise, or whether we've been doing it for a little while, or for even been doing it for a long while, it's always a very good idea, as we're doing in this in this program, is to step back and have a look and say, right, what am I doing? Have I fallen into complacency and comfort? Am I not stretching myself anymore? So this is a point to note. The hidden danger in becoming an expert and a speaker is that you can fall into complacency and comfort. So always keep that in mind. Always be looking, am I just resting on what I'm doing, or do I want to stretch myself a little bit further? because it's very easy to see. It's very comfortable and easy inside our comfort zone. You know, we get in there, we're used to doing what we're doing, and we're used to our expertise, and we don't really want to come out of it. It's nice and warm inside there. We know our knowledge. We've been speaking on a few stages, a few conferences. We're feeling really comfortable. The problem with that is that we stay there and we don't stretch. And when we stay there and not stretch, the next problem that we have is we can miss opportunities. We can miss so many opportunities because there's a point to note that the problem with comfort is that we don't want to reach out and take risks. And it's when we reach out and take risks that we grab the opportunities to come by. Instead of waiting for things to happen, which is what happens in that comfort zone, by reaching out, by stepping out and taking those risks, we start to create opportunities for ourselves and be ready. So that's some of the things that happen with those hidden dangers. And I'd like you to think about that all the time. It is very easy. I've been there, I've done that. You reach a certain standard and you think, wow, now I know what I'm doing. Take the opportunity, like you're doing now, to always shine a mirror up, have a look, step back and see, do I need to tweak something? Do I need to change it? Am I trying to be all things to everybody? Because that can be what your comfort zone is. Then the problem with that is we have confusion and too many choices. When we're starting to speak, and as a speaker with an expertise, we want people to ask us to speak on their stages. We want event organisers to come to us and say, yes, I want you. But what happens is that when we have so much to offer, we cause confusion. And when there's confusion and there's too many choices, the event organiser will go elsewhere. So this is what my little picture here is showing you. Too many doors, too many opportunities. The event organiser's looking at you and you might say, well, I can speak on personal development. I can speak on leadership. I can speak on communication. I can speak on stress. I can speak on networking. And there's all those doors there and you're shining that light and saying, please pick me to speak. And then whoever you've sent, the event organiser, the person organising the conference, is looking at that and saying, oh my God, it's like a smorgasbord. There's too many choices. I'm not going to pick this person because I really don't know what to choose. And they'll go to someone who is just saying, I speak on communication and I speak like I do on helping published authors being able to turn their books into keynote presentations. Now, I have given a completely focused one particular item. There's no other choices. So the speaker, the event organizer can look at it and say, right, that's the person I want to speak for me. But when they're faced with someone who has all this expertise, and believe me, I've been there, because this is what I used to do. I had so much expertise. I knew I could speak on communication for networking. I could speak on communication for leadership. I could speak on stress. I could speak on the power of positive thinking. And I used to shine all these things out and say, wow, you know, I can do all this. The problem is it was making it very confusing for people to come to me and say, yes, I want you. It's like, have you ever been to, I like it, to a smorgasbord. You know, you go to a smorgasbord and you've got all these choices and you don't know what to choose. And quite often you walk away. But you go into a restaurant who gives you a similar, just this very small list on their menu, and you know exactly that one or that one. I've got two choices and that's what I'm going to take. And it just takes all of that stress away and makes it very easy. So that's sort of what we're talking about with this market clarity. We're talking about making sure that we are absolutely the person that someone wants us to go and speak about by being really narrowed, really focused, and giving only maybe one or two choices for an event organizer to say, yes, that's who I want. So the point to note is being focused and niching allows the event organizer no confusion. They can clearly see who you are, what you deliver and can say, yes, this is the person I want for my event, no confusion. And anybody out there who's been involved in selling will realize this also applies in selling. And just remember that when you are a speaker and expertise, you are actually selling yourself to someone to say, pick me, I've got a great message. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm really focused and I want to share it with your group. And as in selling, you don't want to give people too many choices because they won't buy. So that's one of the main things I want you to take away from this week is don't confuse the person who's buying. Make it absolutely clear to them. And that's what's scary. That's why I talk about stepping out from your comfort zone, because it is scary. You have this scary feeling that if I narrow it down, and I know that Sydney and Carrie have been talking to you about niching and micro-niching, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit more just to reinforce that message. But I know how scaring it is. You get really scared. You think, if I just narrow it down to that, then I'm going to miss all of those people that are out there. And as you'll find when I talk a little bit more in the next couple of slides, funnily enough, that doesn't happen. But it is something that we have to take on board, and we do have to be brave and take that first step to be very focused and to step outside of our comfort zone.
And Trish, it's Sydney. They can always add something later.
This is one of my favourite quotes, and I'll just read it. Yes, Don.
Oh, hi. The thing is, what I always
What I always want to remind I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so yes, look, and as I was I'm going to say in a couple of slides, and I'll address what's just been written up, is that that's part of the worry, is that you think that if I focus on this one particular thing here, I'm going to be locked into it. But you're not going to be locked into it. And as I'll talk about very shortly, you'll realize that just by being focused, it gives you a lot more attention. And then what happens is when you have started to be booked for that and you start to share that, there is no reason why the next time that you want to put yourself out or for a different area, you can't focus on a different area of expertise that you can have. What I'm talking about is that each time you focus on that one, and that's what you put out. But you can then, next time you want to put yourself out for a speaking engagement, maybe next month, the next 2 months, or the next 3 months, or the next particular area that you want to, if you want to look on a completely different focus, you focus just on that. You don't just tell people, this is what I do. I do communication for networking. I do communication for leadership. I do engineering. I do sales. If you're talking to, in this particular marketing, and you want to push yourself out, for example, in this particular program, you're going to pick on one particular thing. And that's what you push yourself out on. That's what your focus is on. But that doesn't mean to say that next month or next 2 months, I might be wanting to look at another area of my micro niche. Now, I said I talked about published authors, but I also work with introverts. I also work with bloggers. So I might decide in the next month or so that I want to focus on that particular area. But what will happen then is that all my speaking, all my work that I do, everything that backs up, will be directed to that blogging micro niche. I won't talk about published authors because that then starts to muddy the waters. If I hope that makes it a little bit clear for you. Does that answer your question, Sydney, that you were going to ask me to share? I can't actually see the questions, so if there are any questions, they'll have to be done through Sydney and Carrie in that respect. But we'll come back at the end of the at the end of this time. I hope I have some time and I can ask or clarify if anybody's a little bit worried about what and worrying about micro niching and getting it down, and whether that restricts you, because it doesn't restrict you from doing anything in your expertise. It's just how you do it and how you market yourself and how you focus yourself at this particular time with this particular area that you want to market, and maybe even with this particular audience. Don't muddy the waters. Be extremely focused. It actually gets you a long way. So what I want to look at here is just have a look at why, because to me, why you do what you do, why you're up there speaking, why you have that expertise, it's one of the first things in looking outside your comfort zone and avoiding complacency and having another look is to always have a look and say, well, this is why I started speaking, or this is why I started in my business. This is why I started down learning all my knowledge. And it's always good to go back and say, is my why still what it was when I started? Or do I need to have a look and see that I've now evolved, I'm going down a different area? Because unless you know, and from my personal view, deep down, and you're very, very clear on why you do what you do, you are not going to be very focused when it comes to talking to your audience and leading them where you want to go, or putting yourself out there to be marketed. It's a very important part of your package, and you need to know and be very clear about this. I liken this a lot to, if you're not clear on where your goal is and what your journey is and why you're doing what you're doing, you will go somewhere. It really doesn't matter where you'll go, and it really doesn't matter what you do. You'll end up doing something, but it could be not where you want to go. And when you're not clear about why you're doing something, and you're not clear with the message that you're sharing with your audience, then how can you take that audience along with you to get to that end goal? So it really starts with you. It starts with that foundation. Now, many of you are probably and may already be very, very clear on your why, and that is absolutely brilliant. But just remember that complacency and that comfort zone. Have a look every time you do something. I know it happened with me. Why I started speaking about 20 years ago has changed to what I do and why I do what I do now. Things have evolved along the way. I've started micro-niching, so that focus has changed. But as long as I always know what that focus is, then I know what I'm saying when I'm marketing myself, and I know what I'm saying when I'm talking to my audiences, and they can all come along the same journey, and we can all end up in the same goal, the same destination. So it's always worth looking at that foundation and checking where we want to be. So a point to note here, and I find this extremely valuable. Loving what you do is great. Knowing why you do what you do is powerful. But the thing that we're looking at in the next few weeks is being able to communicate your why, and that takes you to the next level. And this is the focus of what we're talking about, why Sydney and Carrie have brought you to here, is being able to be very focused and communicate what you do, where you're going, who you want to talk to, because that takes you to the next level as a speaker. And it makes you extremely powerful, and I would say absolutely awesome and very marketable. So that's my focus and what I'm talking about so far. Be aware of complacency. Be aware of your comfort zone. Make sure you're always revisiting why you do what you do. Be aware that you are marketing yourself. And when you're marketing yourself, you don't want to cause confusion for the people who are looking at you. You don't want to cause confusion when you're speaking to your audience. You want to be speaking to your audience about the main thing, and you want to be reaching into your micro-niche audience so that there's very clear clarity on when you get up to speak, and what Yvonne's going to take you through is very clear clarity on your message and what you want to share. I'm just going to revisit, and I know that Kerry and Sydney have been doing a lot of work with you just before you signed up, or when you signed up for the program, on your niche and on your micro niche. I just want to, because I believe that actually focuses in on what we're going to be talking about next week, which will be all about the words that we want to use. I just want to revisit this and make sure that you do have your niche firmly in your mind. And there's going to be some homework I'm going to share with you very shortly, which is based on this. So I just want to revisit that focusing on your niche will allow you to be clearly clearly focused on what your words are. And I will just repeat that because you pick one niche now and you pick one focus, that does not stop you from sharing another niche or another focus. I just don't want you to share all of it at the same time. So for the next week and for the particular exercise, we want you just to pick one thing out of all the things that you do. Focus on it clearly and get that clear. And when you do that and you realize how powerful that makes you, then the next time you want to focus on something a little bit different for another audience or a particular different market, you'll find it that much easier and, dare I say, that much more comfortable because you'll know what you're doing. And that's what's powerful about the next few weeks that we're going to be sharing with you. So you can't step up and do this unless you have that foundation. So let me put it to you. Are you trying to be and do all things for all people, or are you going to stop and focus on what you really do? It's the difference between a generalist versus a specialist. And when we're trying to market ourselves, and I'm sure that this may be repeating some of the things that Sydney and Carrie have done, but I think it's very worthwhile making sure that we're all on that same level playing field and we're all going in the same direction. Who gets paid more, a generalist or a specialist? Who can command the higher fees? This is one of the best things of focusing, is that you can command higher fees when you're a specialist. Think about when we go to the doctors, and I think you've probably had this said to you before, a GP commands a certain amount because he's a generalist, but when you go to the specialist, you can see that he charges a lot higher fee. And it's the same with you as a speaker. This is the power of micro-niching. This is the power of focusing. And as you'll find as we go on to next week, this is the power of using all the right words and all the right format to connect with your audience. It makes you the specialist, and it makes you the person that the event organizers, the conference organizers want to come to speak at their event. So just to sum up, the advantages to micro-niching, I just mentioned, are the higher fees. Being aware of, there's a point to note, that higher fees and specialized information, people pay more for expert wisdom rather than general knowledge. And I know it's brilliant to have a lot of knowledge and a lot of expert in everything, but if you just pick one each time, then you're putting yourself out as the expert, and it's wisdom rather than general knowledge. And there's a big difference between wisdom and knowledge. It also goes to credibility. When you focus and you use the right words to focus, because people can then see that you're matching that words, you're matching that focus, and everything you do is congruent to it, then you get instant credibility with your clear message, because people can see the relevance and that you're meeting the needs to your focused audience. And when that happens, then you become extremely credible, because people know, well, you're using the words, you're relevant to what I'm saying, you're meeting my needs, you're addressing my pain, you're giving my solution, then you must be extremely credible. That specialist advantage to being a micro niche in each area that you want to do. And it does go towards eliminating or maybe limiting the competition. We can't always eliminate all competition, and I'd rather not, because competition is great. But when you do that at micro-niching, when you start to use those words and you get that relevance and that credibility, then you're putting your stamp on that market. Now, who's an event organizer going to go to? Someone who has their stamp on the market that's meeting the exact needs that they're looking, or someone that is spreading themselves thin and being more of a generalist? I know which one I want. And I know that it took me, I'll show you, maybe 5 to 6 years to realize that, because I was stuck in my comfort zone. I was there in my complacency. I was very scared that if I micro-niched, I would miss out on all my business, and my business would start to narrow. What happened was when I micro-niched, I started to stand out. And that is what happened. When you micro-niche people, you become very clear on your message and very clear on the words you use. And that's sort of what we're going to be looking at for the next couple of weeks. And especially next week, I'm going to talk about words and how that makes you very clear. But when people can see that, when you're talking about that and you're clear, then people can see exactly who you are. And that's what happened. That's what I found. By micro-niching, by being clear of my words, I found that other introverts wanted to work with me, because those words started to resonate with them. And they'd come to me and they'd say, look, you work with these people, but that's something similar. I've got some similar problems. Will you work for me? And that, people, is the power of stepping outside your comfort zone. It's the power of not letting complacency get to you. It's the power of focusing on what you want to do. It's the power of being sure why you're doing it. And it's the power of micro-niching, because your words then will resonate with others who are similar. It took me quite a few years to realize that. But once I did, and I took that risk and took that deep breath and said, right, I'm going to do what people have been telling me to do for so long, wow, it just worked so much for me. And that's what I'm hoping it will do for you. So this is, I think Sydney might have said to you, okay, that you're going to have a challenge for each session. Now this is what I call my ninja niche stalking. And this is your challenge for next session. I want you to search out your niche on the net. I want you to go and look where the people are that you've chosen. Now this is this particular focus that I know that you've been asked to choose for this program for the next few weeks. So work on this one, because this is going to help you for next week when we talk about what we're going to do, and it's going to help you with Yvonne when she starts helping you to plan out on how you're going to put it all together when you're up there speaking. Look at the words they are using. Look at the problems they are facing. Look at the pain they're in. Look at what they are doing. Because when you can see that, these are the words, these are the solutions that you're going to weave in and out your presentation. These are what you're going to be using when you talk about what you do and how you help them. And this is what's going to make you extremely focused and very attractive to event organizers and to audiences, because they'll be able to focus in and relate to what you're saying. So that's what you do. Search out your niche. Look at what they're using, look at the words they're using, what they're doing, who they are, the pain they're in, and how you can fix it. Also look at the competitors that are targeting your niche. What tactics are they using to attract your niche? What do their websites look like? Where are they looking? Because if they're looking at that and being with that, they're using words that you might want to use similar words. Now, it's just to give you an idea on the focus, the words, how you're going to be looking at a solution, because that's what we're going to be looking at next week. That's basically what I wanted to share with you in this first week. So we can set up, be very clear on what our destination is. Unless we're clear on our focus and our destination, we can't be clear on what we want to say to our audience. It'll only end up going all over the place. And I'm really quite passionate about it, in case you didn't realise, that I am passionate about knowing exactly what direction I want to talk about or where I want to take my audience in this particular time with these particular people. So for the next sessions that we've got, this is what we're looking at, and this is where you're doing your presentations with Yvonne. Are there any